like we were talking about before, I had one instance in one early company. I was walking down the hall and my CFO was coming down the other way, and she asked me, said, "Hey, did you cash your check?" And I said, "Well, no." "Well, don't." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, no.
"Well, when can I cash it?" She goes, "I'll let you know," and walks away. So, right there, I was like, oh, I have to be prepared to take care of myself and be ready for this if I want to do this, and I did. So.
Welcome to the BioTalk Unzipped podcast, where we unzip the stories behind medical progress by sharing the latest and greatest advances in biopharmaceuticals and medical technologies in a fun, entertaining, and enlightening format. And now your co-hosts, Gregory Austin and Dr. Chad Briscoe. Hi, and welcome to BioTalk Unzipped, where we unzip, unlock, and uncover the stories behind medical progress. I'm your host, Gregory Austin, life science professional from Kansas City, and I'll be also joined later by my wonderful co-host, Chad Briscoe. And today, this is a very kind of special on-site type of interview. We're meeting with a number of people here at AAPS NBC in lovely Boston and Seaport area. And today we have Phillip Ramsey from Sangamo, who's the Senior VP of Tech Ops. And we're gonna just chat about some of his experiences here and some of the experiences in his career. And we'll go from there. How you doing, man?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on.
So you've had a fascinating journey from early gene therapy development leading to your tech ops position at Sangamo. What kind of first drew you into this advanced therapy area?
Yeah, I think I started early on with some small molecule work, and then was trying to get to graduate school, and I ended up kind of landing at a biotech company. And I was really kind of hooked from the very beginning because it was a very critical mission, pie in the sky kind of science, and a group of people who were just like-minded and very small, so it was very entrepreneurial, and that I really love.
Right.
So,
and you were mentioning as we were chatting earlier that people really need to have the right mindset coming into especially a biotech situation, because it's not going to be smooth. It's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be moments of terror, moments of uncertainty, and we'll put it that way. And you got to be really prepared, mentally and maybe a little bit financially, just to be, ride those bumps, because it can take some time to get where you need to be, and sometimes things shift and you have to shift with those things. Yeah. So how did you prepare yourself for that and comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think first of all, kind of making sure that my mindset was like, I'm ready for that bumpy ride, like we talked about that bumpy ride. Sometimes I tell people it's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I don't think it's like total tear, but it's a lot of discomfort of like how bumpy this is. Like we were talking about before, I had one instance in one early company. I was walking down the hall and my CFO was coming down the other way, and she asked me, said, "Hey, did you cash your check?" And I said, "Well, no." "Well, don't." And I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, no.
Well, when can I cash it? She goes, "I'll let you know," and walks away. So, right there I was like, oh, I have to be prepared to take care of myself and be ready for this if I want to do this, and I did. So.
Well, good. And here you are today.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Hanging in there.
Still hopefully cashing checks at the right time.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. So you've been involved in method transfers, facility build-outs, regulatory interactions. What's the one thing that teams consistently underestimate when scaling viral vectors?
I think a lot of people for a long time have kind of preached analytics, that you don't have sufficient analytics for that. I think the other piece, so I will say, I think a large portion of folks will say that, and I would agree with that. I think the other thing that people forget is we're still kind of at the beginning, right? You want to be, you think, well, gene therapy's been around for 30 years. Why isn't it where monoclonals are at? Why don't we have, I think a lot of senior staff are always, executives are like, why isn't this $1,000 a vial, right? Or why isn't it at least $10,000 a vial? And I think we're just not there yet, because people keep putting new modalities on top of, early on we saw retrovirus being used routinely. And liposomes for delivery, and now we've kind of moved into lentivirus, MVA, adenovirus for a long time, and now AAV is one of the very popular viral vector systems to use. And LNPs have evolved radically over the last 30 years. So I think between those those tools keep changing, and so you're kind of hitting the restart button when you're going back to the basics of manufacturing. And I think people just have to have the patience to understand, I have to run multiple lots, I have to run multiple products to start gaining that scientific knowledge to be able to move forward. And there's not a shortcut. People want the shortcut, and it's just not there.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what you sign up for, whether you realize it or not, right? Looking back over the past 25, 30 years, what advice would you give your younger self just getting into this gene therapy space? That what you know now, what are some of the wisdom moments that you would share with yourself, or maybe some other young person who's starting to get into this? Yeah,
great question. I think I would don't make any assumptions whatsoever.
Good advice.
Because everything is going to constantly change. Don't make assumptions and be open to whatever you're hearing. And I think that's sometimes I like to tell researchers, like, no matter how bizarre our path to get something to the market, if what you have actually works, we'll try to solve it. Right. Over time, we'll take that great target and try to solve it. And that's, I think, the thing I would definitely tell people.
It's good advice. Yeah. Good advice. Very good. All right.
Well, yeah, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to chat with you. So thanks for joining us today.
Great.
So I wanted to get some of your perspectives on this meeting and what why'd you come? What were you looking forward to? And maybe there's like one talk or two talks that really caught your attention that stood out.
Yeah, I think, well, personally, I love the AAPS NBC. I helped with the first one that was ever started. It was originally a Western regional meeting for AAPS, and a lot of us in biotech on the West Coast just said they wanted to do theme meetings, so we said, okay, our theme is biotech. We're going to do a biotech meeting. And we did it. It was very successful. We did it again. It was pretty successful. And then I think the leadership at AAPS was like, maybe we better rethink this. Maybe we need to make this into some kind of meeting. And then I've been involved with it for decades. So I love the meeting myself. And I think currently it's a great place for pharmaceutical scientists to gather and start getting a lot of information on new modalities and share new ideas. So I think right now that's what the meeting's really serving. And I would offer up, I've had conversations with people who want to write white papers on, how do we leverage knowledge, scientific knowledge from other biologics and put those into those advanced therapies. And we're starting to form groups around doing that. So that's what really I'm impassioned about the NBC, because I do have a strong history there. But also I think there's a place we can really leverage it here going forward.
Right.
And that's one of the areas I think that I'm looking at, these white papers and looking around leveraging knowledge. And also at the same time leveraging knowledge between us when there's things that we can share between companies that are going to benefit everybody. Yeah.
So what do you think in the last, I'll call it 10 years, but in the last, in kind of this recent past, what are some of the developments that were most exciting in the industry, and maybe some of the things that surprised you the most?
Yeah, I think we'll certainly seen some of these modalities approved. When you look in the past and you look at some of the LNPs, you look at adenovirus, some of the other advanced therapy modalities, they haven't made that much progress. There's been a few approvals, but now I think past 2000, you're starting to see this windfall of maybe LNP, but certainly AAV products and certainly CAR T-cell therapy products. There's starting to be that windfall of multiple, maybe there's been more approved in the last 3 years than the previous 5 years, and that I'm super excited about, because that's telling us that people are making the real progress for patients to have useful medicines and can get regulatory approval. Yeah. To me, that's probably the most exciting thing I've been seeing.
What do you think we do? What do you think we need to do to get gene therapies to be affordable? That's when I think about that, I'm like, oh man, I'm thankful for the science and I'm thankful for the treatment, but I'm scared to death that if I ever needed one, would it be covered? Would I be able to afford it?
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. I think that's one of the major issues that have been kind of 5 years ago, I'll say. I think more recently, what we're finding from a commercial perspective is that payers are very excited about advanced therapies. It's all about duration. So if I'm going to give you a treatment that's going to be say $2.5 million. You look at that price tag.
Yeah.
But you might be using a biologic that costs you $800,000 a year. So in 10 years, you'll pay $8 million. So from a payer perspective, they love that,
Yeah.
and they're all over it. The problem is, a lot of times in the US, the channels can be challenging of how you get there, because everybody has to get paid. That's just our system. And so I think companies need to be very attuned to that commercial perspective and understand how these drugs are going to be given. And I think if you can, that's really the big hurdle. I think if you can get through that, I don't think the payer system is as much of a problem as people make it out to be now in the last few years. The other perspective, I think from a patient perspective, is can I give that drug and have them pay something and then get installments for as long as it works? You know, there's a lot of payer models that people are playing with. And I think there you're paying for performance. So what patient isn't going to say, oh yeah, if it keeps working, I'll keep paying? And the payer system will, but is a company really ready to foot that bill to put that out there? It's a big question for us as an industry. What are we ready for? But the possibilities, I think, are pretty endless when you look at it from that perspective.
That's fantastic. I think that's good. What do you think? Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
Cool.
I just wanted to do a short vignette, short
Great,
discussion.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Well, Chad and I would like to extend a very warm thank you to AAPS for all the wonderful support, allowing us to be here and to sort of take over the media room for a while, to have some wonderful conversations with some friends and some new friends and scientists here at AAPS NBC. A special thank you to Rebecca Stouffer, who has been phenomenal in her support and helping all of this happen very smoothly. So we want to thank her, thank the organization, and we look forward to seeing you soon.